Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the Carson Wentz Fallout edition of this week's Trust the Process Live. Big news means we have a big guest. We got the mighty ERock on the show. ERock, how are we doing this weekend? How are we doing today?
Oh, it's been a busy week. It's been a very interesting week, and I appreciate you guys having me on. In fact, the last time I was on this show, I was sitting across the table from Joe San Liquido, and I wanted to fight the dude. I wanted to fight him because he just came out with that report about Carson Wentz, and here we are a couple years later, and my, how things have changed.
Oh, how things have changed is right. YG, Jake Jackson, how are we doing, though?
I'm good. Super Bowl high hasn't completely come down yet, so I still got a smile on my face. But as I'm trying to just enjoy, my peaceful afternoon, my peaceful weekend, here go the Eagles slamming me with some more drama. So I had to wake up spry on a Monday morning. Once I heard we had ERock coming on, I was like, this is gonna be great because no better way to hear about the craziness of this whole Carson Wentz saga than one of the biggest voices in Philadelphia Eagles media that we got going on in the city right now. So I can't wait. I'm excited.
Maximilian, Mr. Digits. I don't know if you heard about the news, but how are you feeling?
What news? The news this past week? I missed it. No,
Exactly.
I'm feeling right. After our contentious debates the last few weeks, where I'm at. Let's get it, man. I'm ready. Yeah, I'm feeling there's going to be a lot of vindication down the road that stems from this episode. I hope I'm on the right side of it.
Hey, I've been feeling vindicated ever since Week 3 against the Bengals, and not in the best way. But let's get into it. So, unless you were living under a large meteor or two, you've heard Carson Wentz has been traded to the Indianapolis Colts. And fellas, it's a real simple question. ERock, I want to come to you on this first. Let's waste no time. There's a reason you're on here tonight. What was your immediate reaction to this Carson Wentz trade?
Well, my immediate reaction, I've been mentally preparing myself for this moment ever since really Carson Wentz got benched. Because if you just read the tea leaves, if you read into what was being said and what was being done and the actions and the words, and also you just look around the rest of the NFL at different situations that have happened across NFL history similar to this, you knew you were basically spelling out the end for Carson Wentz. When I initially heard about the trade, the compensation kind of bothered me, right? It upset me because I'm like, we as fans were immediately led to believe that this enormous Matthew Stafford-like trade it was going to be a blockbuster. There were going to be, people were just throwing first-round picks at us all willy-nilly. They couldn't wait to get their hands on Carson Wentz, and it was going to be a matter of hours until it happened. Then all of a sudden, there was no adequate offer in place. What the hell happened? And then the Bears are involved, and then Jaws is saying it's 2 second-round picks. So when I heard about the conditional 2 and the 3, initially I was disappointed. But then I kind of started to digest the trade itself. And it almost seems like that initial 2, the Eagles were hell-bent on a 1, the Colts were hell-bent on 2, so they decided to split the difference. One of those 2s became a 3, and one of those 2s became a conditional 1. Because you can also call that a conditional first-round pick, too, right? If he doesn't play 70, then it becomes a 2. So it goes both ways. So they split the difference in the compensation, and when I think about the term split the difference, I'm okay with it. Because we know Carson Wentz's ceiling. Carson Wentz's ceiling is 2017 MVP caliber, in the running, setting the league on fire, Carson Wentz. We know Carson Wentz's floor. That's 2020 Philadelphia Eagles style, where he's statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, right? So let's split the difference, just like the Colts split the difference in the compensation. What we did is trade if you look at every other year, he's a pretty good quarterback. So we traded a pretty good quarterback for pretty good compensation. And at the end of the day, I'm okay with that.
I'd say it's a fair assessment. I happen to agree with you. Max, I'm going to come to you last as the residential Eagles fan that's been on this show for years and years. JJ, the non-local, the Buccaneers fan who's sitting pretty unfortunately for us right now. But JJ, what were your reactions to this? And Max, you can follow him.
First of all, I want to say I am sitting pretty. I don't know if it's unfortunate to you. You guys didn't have anything to do with where we are right now, for better or for worse. But I guess my immediate reaction comes in wake of the Nick Sirianni hire, which comes in wake of the Doug Peterson firing, which comes in wake of it's like the last ripple, the last domino to fall, and all of this. And any of you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like them trading Carson was almost a fail in the last step of the plan. When you hire Nick Sirianni, it seemed like when you're going after someone in the Frank Reich coaching tree that it was to salvage what you had left of Carson Wentz or to try to get him back to 2017 level, or in the same vein, hire a coach that makes Carson want to stay in Philadelphia. Like, look, we got rid of the coach that clearly doesn't play your offense or has it in the past couple of years, and now we're going to get a coach who is directly related to the coach who gave you the best chance of success in Frank Reich. But when they got Nick Sirianni, it seemed that Carson Wentz, he's never going to be the guy who publicly comes out and demands a trade from Philadelphia, right? But he seems like he still wanted out the door. Like he still, like you said, ERock, was reading the tea leaves, read the writing on the wall, was like, my time in Philadelphia is done. Like, you've already benched me. You've already planted the seed into the minds of Philadelphia, and he knows better than anyone. Once seeds are planted in the minds of Philadelphia fans, you lost them at that point. You don't come back from that. You've lost them at that point. So it seemed like the Eagles doing this, I think they got fair compensation. Max was telling me a couple episodes ago to leave the dream out of the window that the Eagles would get a first-round pick. They might end up getting a first-round pick. If all goes right for the Colts, the Eagles get a first-round pick out of this. So it seems like even when you have kind of a failed last step of the plan, you got better than what any failed last step of a plan could get is, hey, not only we got a draft pick out of it, we got two of them, and one may be a first-round draft pick. But it just leaves my head scratching of, what are you going to do with Jalen Hurts? And is Nick Sirianni now, retrospectively looking, the coach that you want? Because you got him to try to convince Carson Wentz to stay or to get him back to that MVP form. That was clearly, I mean, Jeffrey Lurie kind of made that public. Like, this is to get Carson Wentz back to form. We believe in Carson Wentz. This is an investment in him. And then he came in the door and said, hey, appreciate the gesture. I still want out. This didn't do it for me, which is a fear in the organization. But I think this is what happened. So it's now, what do we do with this head coach? Is it, like you said, ERock, just a rental because this is a transitional period? Is this just to get us to the next point? Or, did we get Nick Sirianni thinking that this is going to make Carson stay or at least want to compete in camp? Now that he's not here, do we regret even hiring Nick Sirianni? I think so many more questions come out even after Carson Wentz probably still wanted to request this trade. I don't think this happens unless Carson is helping to facilitate this or catalysting.
Maxadelphia, the man that we once referred to as the Messiah of the organization, has been traded. What's it like for you, man?
I mean, honestly, my initial reaction was just thank God this whole saga is over and we can at least move on, right? Because, I don't know about JJ, but I would assume the other three of us have daily interactions with multiple Eagles fans every single day. And I know I was sick and tired of discussing it with my. I'm not saying that as a slight against you. I know your one parent is a Chiefs fan. I don't know the situation of the fandom in your household, JJ. This is not a personal thing, trust me.
Okay.
I'm just speaking. I don't know how many interactions you have with Eagles fans outside us on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know if you had the same level of just sick of this shit as I did and Josh and maybe ERock as well. Because quite frankly, I was pretty sick of it, the debate going on around it. With that being said, I think the trade was as fair as the Eagles were going to find. Like, I think we all agree that it was stupid at best to hope that they could get a blockbuster Stafford-esque type offer. That was never going to happen. No. Let's just say this: even the Bears wouldn't offer that. And Ryan Pace is your best avenue to a lopsided deal, dealing Carson Wentz out of town. So I think the fact that they might get a first-round pick out of this, I've been pretty adamant in saying that that's a pipe dream for all intents and purposes. So I think the fact that that's on the table in some capacity, it's a win. Like it can't be a win ever to trade your second overall pick that you mortgage the future for this, right? But in the context of the situation, the fact that the Eagles were like, hey, who wants him? But if nobody wants him, we'll just take him back. It's cool. Don't worry about it, guys. But like, hey, we do want 2 first-round picks. He's got 2 first-round picks. But okay, we'll take this conditional and this. There was a lot going on, right? So I think ultimately, I think Eagles should be happy, right? Because there's really only one super, super negative scenario for the Eagles, which is Carson Wentz doesn't meet his quota of 70 to 75% of the snaps played, and somehow the Colts backup does bad enough where everybody from Philadelphia says, you know what, the Colts would have done way better with Carson Wentz. And that's really just the worst case scenario we can look at out of this is nothing good comes from the trade or from our opinion of being able to say, hey, there's a reason this guy was the worst quarterback in the league, right? So I think that, we're obviously going to have to see how the season plays out. I'm going to be the first to say it here. I don't see the Colts being as good as last year if this is their only unilateral move because Carson Wentz is, as of this very moment, not enough Philip Rivers. I don't really know how you say that he is. Like, other than age, I don't see the argument for it. So I'm going to say the Colts will be.
You want that really bad. You want that really bad, Max. It'll make you feel a lot better if he goes and stinks somewhere else too.
It will. That, as long as he plays 70% of the snaps and stinks, I'm cool. He can't stink bad enough to get benched for games in the season. I'll be vindicated, but it's an L for the overall grand scheme of things. So at this point, I think we should be happy with the return. Obviously, we're going to need to see how the season plays out to really, gauge how smart of an idea it was to give up on Wentz, whether it was a mutual decision or not. But I think for now, we should at least be all right. We should at least be content. Barring you're not on one of the two extreme sides of things.
I can tell for both of you Eagles fans that you're so done with this. You're so at the end of the road with this because you're right, Max. This is your second overall draft pick getting traded, and both of you guys are like, "Hey, man, we got what we got for it. Like, it's just time to move on." Like, if this was in the beginning of the year, I bet the reactions would be through the roof, so sky high. But just like I said, it's the last domino to fall. It's the last piece of the puzzle, and it's like, man, I just want this behind me, which I think is a good direction for the Eagles organization. Is get all this shit and this turmoil behind you. Start moving forward. Whether it's with the right decision or the wrong decision, like start moving on from this whole saga. Like start looking towards better days. But I do want to say something that I've been kind of kicking around in my mind all day, and I want to see if it sounds as ridiculous out loud. ERock, feel free to tell me if it is ridiculous.
I'll be fair.
Be fair, because it's just an inkling in my mind. No, there's been reports out there that Carson Wentz had a little bit too much pull in the organization. I had too much of a front line to the organization. Mm-hmm. And I don't doubt that, although he's not maybe the most outspoken person about this trade, that I do think Carson Wentz was still behind the scenes saying, yes, I would still like to get traded. I still think my time here is done. Is it a coincidence? And I just think it's a little bit of a coincidence that the two trade destinations, the only two trade destinations that the Eagles found for him were the Colts, where he had his old offensive coordinator, and the Bears, where he had his old quarterbacks coach. Those are the only two places either that the Eagles called or picked up the phone for Carson Wentz. So whether he has a good relationship with Howie a good enough relationship with Jeff Lurie, I just think it's a little. I don't know what to make of it, but that's what I noticed. That the only two places that Carson were going to go were to the two people that had him and two people that made him successful last time. I just don't know what to make of it. Is that purely a coincidence, or is that someone pulling the strings for Carson saying, "Hey, if you can't stay here, I'm gonna make sure you go to where where at least you were good last time. Let me know."
No, I don't think it's ridiculous, and I do think Carson Wentz had a lot of pull simply because when you have your quarterback is your number one, right? Mm-hmm. Is your number one priority. They made it the number one priority in that draft where they moved up. They did the double jump, traded up a boatload of picks to go get him. They mortgaged the future on Carson Wentz. And now that we were inside kind of the sunset of everything that was going on, I do believe that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman tried to do everything they possibly could to salvage that relationship in some respect, right? Now, granted, drafting Jalen Hurts will forever be, as much as I sort of criticized the pick in the beginning, and now in hindsight, I'm really kind of a Jalen Hurts fan. I'm a Jalen Hurts guy. I've been excited since I've seen him play against the Saints and was calling for him to start. I will never really quite understand who decided to pull that trigger and why the trigger was genuinely pulled. We can hear quarterback factory. We can hear, we don't want to miss out on the next Russell Wilson. We can hear he's just here to back up. We can hear a lot of BS. Yeah. I'm not sure we'll ever find out the real reason why that kid was drafted, how it went down, and why it went down. Nevertheless, I do think that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman tried to do everything to salvage the relationship. What Super Bowl winning head coach, 3 years after winning the Super Bowl, interviews for his own job twice? Who does that?
Yeah.
And I really think that there was a lot of issues on the table. Everything from assistant coaches and who you want to now, but the main thing was Carson. And you can choose to believe or not believe the reports out now that Carson and Doug weren't talking, but I do firmly believe that Doug wanted to move on from Carson.
Now,
and then they interviewed Deuce Staley. And I firmly believe that the reason that Deuce Staley didn't get the job is that he wanted to roll with Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why Nick Sirianni was brought in was because he was the next best thing to Carson Wentz's estranged father and Frank Reich.
Yeah.
You can't go get Frank. Josh McDaniels screwed you, and he went to Indianapolis, and you can't get him back. The next best thing you can do to make Carson happy is go get his offensive coordinator. So they bring in the offensive coordinator, and Carson still doesn't want to be here. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, is on Carson. Like, listen, there's only so much the organization can do to make you happy. If you still want to split, that's on you. All right, that's just hurt feelings because let's ignore the fact. I'm going to get on a tangent here.
Go ahead.
Let's ignore the fact that they paid you $100 million and focus solely on the fact that they drafted a quarterback in the second round. You're more butthurt over that than the fact that you secured your bag. All right, nevertheless, that's neither here nor there. When it comes down to the Colts and the Bears, when you look at the Bears situation, if I'm Carson Wentz, I'm looking at a head coach and a GM who are lame ducks. They were given exactly 1 year to right the ship. You could have got the most return out of Chicago because if I'm the GM, I got 1 year left. I don't care. If Carson Wentz works, I keep my job. If Carson Wentz doesn't work, I'm out the door anyway. So
he's better than my only option right now. My only option is Mitch Trubisky. Better than my only option right now.
And there you go. But that quarterback coach, DeFilippo, remember, Carson didn't like that guy. Carson didn't get Flip coached Carson hard, and Carson didn't like it. Which is when you take
Carson didn't like that.
Yeah, Carson didn't like getting coached tough. No, he wants his buddy, who now's the quarterback's coach, or is he the offensive coordinator out there in Indianapolis? Right? He's out there in Indy now, so his buddy's out there in Indy. Frank's out there in Indy. I'm not going to Chicago because I'm not going to sign a long-term. So you can trade all this draft asset for me. I'm not signing long-term with you. Mm-hmm. So you almost force your hand to go to Indianapolis. And I think Indy knew it. Which is why they were able to kind of finesse and, all right, 2-2s. All right, we'll split the difference.
Yeah, I can get on that page with you. If Carson didn't say, these are the only two places I want to go, I think in their mind, Laurie and Roseman, or maybe just Roseman, were like, this might be my best options because these are the two best. They have the two pieces to the Carson Wentz puzzle. They have Frank Reich and DeFilippo. So if he goes to one of those places, maybe we can see Carson be successful somewhere else and salvage whatever relationship we have. I just think it was a mighty big coincidence that the only two places that were going to take Carson had the two coaches that put Carson together. I was like, that's a big coincidence right there.
Yeah, it is. I mean. My 2 cents on that, JJ, would just be, I think maybe no one really wanted him, and you have Frank Reich telling the Colts, no, this guy's legit, I want him, and maybe you got John DeFilippo saying the same thing. So I'm going to take the other angle and saying, maybe no one really wanted them other than these two guys who had seen how good he is. But, gentlemen, we're going to have to move on just a little bit, and I think we all pretty much answered the question, so we'll just fly through this one. Now, did the Eagles oversell, undersell, or get a fair value? And are we all saying fair value, or does anyone object?
I think fair value, and I said that previously.
I mean, they oversold him as a player. They got a fair value.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, they way sold Carson Wentz, and they honestly made themselves look a little foolish by leaking all that stuff to the media. Let's all take off our Eagles hats or Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay hats for a second. All right? Let's all take off our Eagles hats. Let's say quarterback XYZ had a good season, an MVP caliber season 3 years ago, has been injured frequently, is costing one of the biggest cap chunks in the NFL right now. And some team is demanding 2-1s, and he was statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL the previous year. Are you taking that risk? Say it out loud. Take the wings off the helmet. Take the name off the jersey, and just say that stuff out loud and see how it sounds. It doesn't roll off the tongue. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, they got fair compensation.
I mean, you put it that way, ERock. They came up on one. Like you put it all of that, and we talked about how that 2 could easily turn into a 1. Like if Carson Wentz just it's not like he got injured again this year. If the Colts just ride him out for a season, you get a first-round draft pick. Like he didn't get hurt this season. If you didn't bench him for Jalen Hurts, he was going to play 70% of the snaps. Like you still turn into a 1 this year. If the Colts do that, no matter how bad he is, if the Colts just ride him out through next season, and they have a head coach in Frank Reich who quote unquote believes in him and is willing to do that, you get a first-round pick for a guy who led a sinking ship. For a guy who a lot of people think were the cause of the ship sinking. You put all of that out into the air, ERock, and see what the Eagles got in return for him. I was ready to say a day or two ago that it was just fair value. When you do all of that, rip the name off the jersey, rip everything off, and just look at it, just paper stats, and you look at the trade that you got in return for that guy, you're like, no, I don't know who this is. But the Eagles came up on one. Like the Eagles absolutely came up on one.
And let's clarify the illusion that this is a conditional too, because I hated the phrasing of the pick right from the get-go. So I had somebody tweet me, one of my followers tweet me today and said, "Are you concerned at all about the Indianapolis Colts kind of pulling Carson, try to preserve that first-round pick so it becomes a 2?" And I said to him, "Listen, think about it. This is 75% of the snaps." All right, so Jeff McClain already tweeted that each season Carson Wentz has played over 80% of the snaps, regardless of injury or benching or what happens. So chances are that's already going to happen. But the Colts would have to be in a scenario where by week 12, because we're talking 75% of the snaps, by week 12, they were so far away, they weren't even close to sniffing the playoffs, that they decided the best course of action for the organization is to pull Carson Wentz and preserve the pick. They would have to be like Houston Texans bad next year. And that's just not going to happen. Assuming Carson Wentz, the only thing preventing this 2 from becoming a 1, and from here on forward, I'm going to call it a 1. I'm going to call it a conditional 1. The only thing preventing that from being a 1 is Carson Wentz's health. They're not going to bench Carson. They're not going to give all that up and then bench Carson. You know what I mean? The organization is not going to admit they were wrong that quickly, the Colts organization. So I do think in all likelihood, this is a 90% chance that this is the number 1 first round pick.
I'm with you. Max, you got any thoughts?
I actually do. It's ERock, thank you for the smooth transition. I feel like you mind here, because I actually wanted to talk about, if we go back to the neutral, take all the context out of things, right? If you line up this offer up accepting from the Colts, right? If we had the same offer on the table from the Bears, and it seems that the Bears offer was a little bit better, but just for the sake of argument, same exact offer from these same 2 teams, the Colts are in a significantly better chance to turn that pick into a 7. And it really comes down to their division, right? They play 6 games total against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, and the Houston Texans. We can peg the Texans and the Jaguars as probably 2 bottom 5 teams, right? You got to imagine that a good team that's built foundation like Colts probably not going to have to ask their quarterback to do a ton in those games, right? One of those 4 games against the Texans and the Jaguars, chances are Wentz is not back there getting killed, having to throw 40-plus times, right? That just seems to be the nature of the business. The Titans, who knows what you get with the Titans on a week-to-week basis. Last year, they would score first quarter, and then they would give up 40 in the second quarter, or they wouldn't score at all in the first half, and games would finish 13-17. So the Titans are a little bit of a mixed bag. But really, I want to kind of focus on the other side of things, right? If Carson Wentz is the Chicago Bears quarterback, I mean, the Lions, they're kind of stinky. But, I mean, at best, you can see the Bears being the second best team, taking them over the Packers, right? I don't think any of us are taking over the Packers. The Vikings had a down year. I still think they're on equal footing with the Vikings, right? So just by nature of scheduling, you're going to play harder games in the NFC North, which leads to potential more chances for injury because you're dropping back passing, or more potential for performances so bad that they remind you of 2020, and that does push the envelope to getting him benched. So I think that the Bears, and maybe they catered a little bit too much. So I've never seen a guy who has only been with the team for 5 years and has been so up and down and coming off the lowest of the lows get such I don't want to say favorable treatment, but have such a healthy influence in terms of the decision the organization is making. They don't need to ask for his input. They don't need to bend to his will. They could have said, hey, the backup quarterback and we'll take 2 seconds for that. They didn't have to send him to a favorable situation. So I think that in the grand schemes, like I said, I think we got a good deal for him. I think that they played their hand by saying the Stafford stuff and letting him have all this influence. But if it was going to end up with him being in Indianapolis anyway, what's the big deal at this point? And I love that Jeff McClain stat. I didn't see that. Knowing that even with all of his injuries, percent has been his consistent benchmark. I figured it was probably going to be more around the 70% mark because that's why they were using that as the basis of the. So I'm really feeling great after McClain said. I honestly am.
Yeah, I love the trade, and let me give you a stat that I think is going to make us love it a little bit more. Last year, out of 35 eligible passers, Carson ranked 34th in the NFL in quarterback rating. He was in front of only Sam Darnold and right behind Dwayne Haskins. So, look, we all know Carson's ceiling is much higher than those guys, but to get the return for a guy who had a worse QBR than Dwayne Haskins, I love that one.
But you got a first. You're gonna get a first for a guy with a worse QBR than Dwayne Haskins. Go play the lottery. Go play the lottery because that don't happen every day.
And well, that was the past. Now let's look ahead to the future here. This is a big question that a lot of us Eagles fans are talking to ourselves about. Now, is Jalen Hurts QB1 ready to hand this man the keys, or should the Birds consider maybe even taking a quarterback at number 6? Max, you finished it off. I'm going to go back around. You're going to take this one first.
Do it.
Good, because I hate the idea of taking a quarterback at 6 here. It is insane that the Eagles, through sheer dumb luck, have stumbled in their way to a perfect rebuild opportunity. Because on one hand, you have a guy you took with a second pick, high draft capital last year. You had a full preseason to see what he can do, right? Carson Wentz a lot of leeway in his rookie year for not having the best pieces around him. We've given him a year since for not having the pieces around him. I think that it would just be stupid. It would be plain stupid to take a quarterback at 6, because then what? Then we're going through this whole quarterback carousel again, and then what happens? We take Justin Fields at 6, and what happens? We bring him in for read options only for 2-point conversions once every 3 weeks. We want to go through that again for another 16 games? I sure as hell don't. So I think that you take every record says it's not going to be good. It's not going to be playoff worthy. You take your lumps. You get another high draft pick next year, and guess what? If the Eagles 6 again, it's probably going to have something to do with Jalen Hurts' performance, good or bad. And then next year you decide if you want to make the move for the the franchise future, because you might already have one, but taking the possibility of ever finding that out.
ERock, I know you're a Hurts guy as well. Are you sticking with Jalen next season?
I'm a Hurts guy, okay, but I am going to attempt to, and I think successfully, sell you on both ideas. Both ideas, and then you can make the decision which one that you like. Okay. Number one, we'll go pro Hurts. First of all, this organization achieved its highest level of success with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. And that while they did draft Carson Wentz and Sam Bradford was in the building, all it took was a Teddy Bridgewater injury and a phone call from the Minnesota Vikings, and there was clarification on which quarterback that was going to be. Obviously, they would have loved that clarification a little earlier, but it was what it was. But it was what it was. By week 1, they were rolling into the season a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback like so many others in the NFL, whether it's Harbaugh and Joe Flacco, whether it's, you look at instances around the NFL and see this sort of marriage between the two, a clear cut. And plus you saw when rumors about this Carson Wentz trade was going to happen, you saw younger players kind of almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but like cheering for Hurts, like excited to work with Hurts. Miles Sanders is tweeting out, we're going to the Super Bowl. Like that. Who does that? So you can tell that there was a swag to this team when Jalen Hurts went in there and Carson Wentz was benched, despite all the injuries, despite all the shortcomings on the roster. So you want to add another piece to that young buck Eagles team, don't you? You want to add another receiver. So now all of a sudden, instead of what Carson Wentz had, like a Torrey Smith and a Nelson Aguilar and an Alshon Jeffrey, it's like it's like a Jalen Reagor and a Chase, right? You know what I mean? You want to and a Miles Sanders. You want to build and a Dallas Goedert. You want to really build that young, exciting offense and have them all come up because his coaching staff is young too. This coaching staff, head coach is as old as I am, which makes me question every single life decision I've ever made at 39. That here I'm tweeting about the Eagles and this guy's coaching the Eagles. That's neither here nor there. His offensive coordinator is what, 35? Quarterback's coach is 33. The linebackers coach is 27 years old. So it's a young roster, it's a young coaching staff, and they can all come up together. I like that idea. Here's what I'll argue for taking a quarterback at 6. This is a league, gentlemen, of the have and the have-nots. The individuals who have a quarterback have a chance. Those who don't have a quarterback don't. And you don't need to look any further than the man sitting above me. If you have a quarterback, you have a chance. Dreams can come true.
Yes,
Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So what's so wrong? What is so wrong about hedging it? You know what I mean by hedging your bet on the most important position in all of sports? You got Jalen Hurts. Maybe you got something there. Maybe you don't. And if you don't, you got another couple years to find out and then start all over again. What's so wrong with being a pick number 6? Because you don't expect to be a pick number 6 every single year. Taking another quarterback. Now you got 2 young quarterbacks, 2 cheap quarterbacks on their rookie deal with a 5th-year option. Figure it out from there. You're hedging your bet on the most important position in sports. So which one did I sell you on?
You sold me on the young core, actually.
I am sold on the young core.
You sold me on the young core. I wasn't leaning towards the quarterback as what I want the Eagles to do. Truthfully, I don't care what y'all do. But like what I want the Eagles to do, or more of what I think they will do. But you definitely sold me on the young core because I think it's just as exemplary as the rookie head coach and rookie quarterback as the young core is growing up together and doing something. Like go ahead.
If this works, and Nick Sirianni's the guy, and Jalen Hurts is the guy. Let's put aside the fact that it worked with the Philadelphia Eagles and Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. Let's take a look at Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, who were able to afford to bring in free agents when they knew they were close because their quarterback was on a rookie contract. Look at Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They knew once they put him in place that it was going to work, and then they were able to go out in free agency and via trade and bring in the correct pieces. So I mean, it's an exciting thing to have Jalen and young talent and see if it's going to work. Because if it works, man, does it work big?
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more with that. Hey, ERock, I'm still a Jalen Hurts guy. I think they got that guy here, and it's Jalen Hurts. I really do. But we're going to move on to the next question, go a little bit away from Hurts and a little more on how we think Carson's going to fare next season. So I mentioned that stat earlier about Dwayne Haskins. By all statistics, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last season. What current quarterback comparison can you make for Carson's next season? Now, I'm hoping we can get the graphic up here to give you. We got Dwayne Haskins on one side, Patrick Mahomes on the other side. Find someone in the middle. There it is. Find someone in the middle of that spectrum who you think is comparable to what Carson Wentz will perform next year. JJ, I'll come to you on this one first, being the non-Eagles fan.
So, being that I can look at this objectively, you guys will argue that it's objectively. You guys think I'm always hating on the Eagles. But when it comes to stuff like this, I do try to look as objectively as possible. One, I'm looking at the context of what Carson Wentz is going into. He's not going into drama. He's going into, a team that, as ERock said, it looks like a well-run organization right now with a top tier-ish defense, a top-of-the-line defense, weapons around him, one of the best offensive guards in the NFL. On that offensive line, which makes it, a good offensive line. He's going into structure, which is what I think Carson Wentz needs. He doesn't need to be, the reason that, you go and win games, doesn't have to play hero ball. But he is coming off of the worst year of his career, one of the worst seasons that we had in the NFL last year. So I kind of peg him somewhere right directly in the middle of, he's not going to be a great quarterback, but he's not going to be a bad quarterback. And when you get kind of directly in the middle of that like that, this year, it's not a name that jumps off the paper. But I look at a guy like Derek Carr on the Raiders last year, where he's kind of like middle of the road, where I think 15 out of the 32 NFL teams would be like, yeah, I'd like to have Derek Carr as my quarterback. But then the other 15 or the other 16 of the 32 NFL teams are like, no, my quarterback's way better than Derek Carr. I don't want Derek Carr as my quarterback. I think that's what we can expect from Carson Wentz. Like there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period, but he's going to find some success because there's some familiarity there in his coaching staff, and he's got weapons and a good team around him to, one, lean on, and two, make up for his mistakes. So a lot of people are kind of putting the Colts right in their top 10 of their power rankings. They're way too early power rankings. I'm not there yet. Carson's got to show a little bit more than to put his team into the top 10 of next year. But I think Carson Wentz finds some success. I don't think he's going to be statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in the league next year, but he's not going to be someone who's going to be lighting the world on fire. You get an 80 to 85 QBR out of Carson Wentz, and I think the Colts will take that. You ride that off into the sunset. You get a middle-of-the-road quarterback.
I like it. I'd sign up for a Derek Carr season. ERock, what are we going with? Who's the QB comp?
The QB comp is not. I'm not going to this year. I'm gonna take it back a couple years and go with 2017 Alex Smith, who found success with the Kansas City Chiefs. Right?
I feel like we're kind of they're kind of similar.
Right. 2017 regular season, just north of 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, led the league with passer rating at 104.7. All right. But at the end of the day, what did the Chiefs do? They drafted a quarterback and they moved on from Alex Smith. So I think, Max and I never talked prior, to about Carson Wentz prior to this. But early on, I got the impression that he was a Jalen Hurts guy. Am I right or am I wrong?
I'd say you're right at this point. I defended Wentz as long as I could
last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Words at this point.
Okay. Yep. All right. Same with me. But you were I kind of got this vibe from you that you were worried about the dunk. In other words, the Carson Wentz apologists, the Carson Wentz fans, the Carson Wentz truthers, him going to Indianapolis, having success, and here they come with the dunk, right? That's what you were. Did I get that vibe right? Did I kind of?
I think people are looking for a reason to dunk on the Eagles front office for this trade.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it'll happen.
Here's where nobody, whether it's anybody, needs to worry about the dunk. All right, the expectation should be that Carson does find success in Indianapolis. I mean, they're a good team. They were better than the Eagles. They're in a different arc than the Eagles right now. So you should see Carson Wentz go to Indianapolis, being reunited with Frank Reich, being reunited with coaches that have fresh start, fresh mentality, better offensive line, arguably some better weapons, and that he should succeed. But I don't think it's going to be so over the moon that all of a sudden we look at Carson Wentz the way the Chargers fans look at Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we should look at. We're probably going to look at Carson Wentz the way that San Francisco 49ers fans looked at Kansas City. Well, yeah, he's done better. He's done good. God bless him. But he's not the end-all, be-all to the NFL. He's going to make the Pro Bowl. He's going to have some great stats. But at the end of the day, right, people are still going to move on from them when he gets the chance.
Maxadelphia, let's hear it.
I almost feel like this is just like a weak answer. You guys are turning back the clock, and I actually had Derek Carr in mind, but it's crazy how I think that Carson's performance is going to line up almost exactly with what Phillip Rivers did last year, as weird as it sounds. 68% completion percentage, not sure if it'll be that high, but 4,100 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I think what you lose in terms of the completion percentage, because I don't know if it'll be at 68. Obviously, you gain the rushing upside compared. And I don't see why Carson Wentz can't put up similar numbers in an offense that's only going to have another year to grow. The Colts have a really, really good offensive line. I'm sure he'll be happy to have one of those in front of him again. Their outside receivers are average as of right now. T.Y. Hilton is kind of on the decline of his career. Shout out to Michael Pittman, because I actually am really a big fan of him as a player, but we made it this far without mentioning that he refusing to give number 11 to Carson Wentz, which I absolutely love, because quite frankly, what has he done to deserve that? This is not Tom Brady coming to Tampa Bay and saying,
Right.
Chris Godwin, I'm the motherfucking man around this part. You're giving me number 12. Carson Wentz is like, hey, guys, my team didn't want me anymore after they did the best.
And you know Carson, right? He said, would you mind if I took number 11 from you? Like, oh, get out of here, bro. Like, get out of here. Go to your locker.
So I think that it'll be pretty similar to Philip Rivers in terms of the passing, the overall raw numbers. But like I said, I think that what you're going to lose in terms of Philip Rivers' short accuracy, because Lord knows Carson Wentz doesn't know how to throw a drag route or a slant route. And we know Philip Rivers has plenty of experience with those. I think that difference in completion percentage. I mean, obviously Philip Rivers is as sitting duck as it gets in the pocket. So Wentz's mobility will kind of make up for that. I'm going to assume that Wentz will probably come in between like 61 to 63% completion, which is a pretty big drop off from 68. Don't get me wrong, but I mean the fact that your quarterback is a semblance of mobile is going to more than make up for that in terms of his overall raw number output.
So we're all pretty much on the same page here. A game managing, like a decent type quarterback. Maybe it's because producer Banner's hiding isn't here. I'm gonna go with Kirk Cousins. Just in the sense that Kirk Cousins puts up some decent numbers, but the name Kirk Cousins, you saw the reaction.
All of us.
Kirk Cousins, if you put him on the Colts, a better system.
Yeah, just stank face. Yeah, that's stinky.
But hey, that's gonna wrap up our main event. Go ahead, Max.
I got a fun game for everybody. Since we know Carson Wentz won't be in number 11 on Indianapolis, I want everybody to guess what number he'll end up wearing. I'm guessing 4 for Brett Favre. So there's my guess. Give everybody some inspo to work with.
I'll go with 15. Feels right.
There you go. I'm gonna say number 1. You want to take that number 1 or number 2 and just throw it in Jalen Hurts' face.
Oh, could you imagine?
If I'm Carson Wentz, I might take number 9 and hopefully get some of that Nick Foles.
There you go.
Magic, what I mean? Like, it didn't work as number 11. I'll switch it to 9 and see if I can win a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's gonna wrap up our main event. We've been talking all Eagles all the time, and believe it or not, we got Minute with Max at halftime to give us a quick Philadelphia Flyers update. Max, take the floor.
I mean, there's really, if anything, this week is less exciting than last week because the Flyers actually lost 2 games since we've last seen you guys. And I mean, that outdoor game was beautiful. I wish that they just stood on the ice for the 3 hours that the game actually took, not counting the 28 hours in between delays and everything. But let's just say the scene was much nicer, much more visually appealing than anything the Flyers did. And, kind of the same situation against the Rangers. I mentioned this last week's episode. If you watched that Rangers game last Thursday, I'm sorry. That was not very fun. I tried to watch it. It was sloppy. It was very sloppy, kind of what we expected. But the light at the end of the tunnel is hopefully starting to shine through. I was hoping I could give you guys an official announcement on this today because I've been following it all day. The Flyers have 6 pretty important players, including Giroux and Voracek, on their COVID list. But today they actually actioned 4 of their taxi squad members, which is basically like, think about like minor leaguers that you're keeping on the bubble in a bubble, right? So not only are they the guys fluctuating between minor leagues and the pros, they're basically just being kept away from the rest of the professional team. Should a COVID outbreak happen, these guys are not affected at all. They can also bounce back and forth. So with good news is the Flyers placed 4 of the guys back on the minor league list today, which you would assume opens the roster back up for some of the more familiar names. Unfortunately, those announcements haven't come through officially. The NHL does like an updated COVID, who's on the COVID listing at every day at 5:00. Unfortunately, all 6 of the Flyers were still on that list as of today, but it seems like we should have news on that front tomorrow. So I'm going to say just keep an eye out on that. The Flyers you watched the last 2 games should be much different than the Flyers you see the next 2. So hopefully next time we do this, it's not as a result of another huge COVID outbreak and the Flyers are limping along with minor leaguers. So that's really it for right now, but fingers crossed that I have better news to bring you guys in the future.
The fastest minute in sports, as they call it. Thank you, Max, for the Flyers update. Now it's time to jump into the second half. We got a little new segment this week. We're playing over-unders. And yes, we do like to talk about gambling, of course, but no, this is a different type of over-under. So without further ado, gentlemen, the first question, it's a good one. Jalen Hurts will play over or under the amount of games that Carson Wentz plays next year. ERock, over or under the amount of games that Carson Wentz plays next season?
Is there an even?
Ooh.
Why was my first. Can we push it?
Yeah, can I push? Because you want Jalen Hurts or XYZ quarterback. Jalen Hurts, because some of us are Jalen Hurts guys in here. You want that quarterback to play the entire season. You also kind of want Carson to play the entire season too, because that 2 becomes a 1. I'm sorry, I'll correct myself. That conditional first-round pick stays a first-round pick if he plays. So I'm gonna push. I'm gonna push.
But push because they're all playing 16, or are they gonna, or someone missing a game here?
Oh, you including playoffs? Oh, I think the Colts go to the playoffs.
No playoffs,
Okay.
no playoffs, just regular season. JJ, over or under, or are you sticking with even as well?
I was even popped into my mind because if everything goes as the way it should go, the Eagles, take a different position at number 6, a wide receiver, preferably to the Eagles. Carson Wentz stays healthy, plays at least 70% of the snaps. Everyone gets what they wanted, and everyone's happy. But I've seen the Eagles, especially in recent drafts, fumble picks when the easy option is there, and you fumble it, and it only takes one of these guys, either Justin Fields or Zach Wilson, to fall to 6, where Howie has so many decisions on his hand that the easy pick just becomes too hard. It can't be this simple, right? No, someone's got to look at Howie in the draft room. Howie, we have it on the board. Jamar Chase's name is on our board right there. Just do it. Just do it. All it takes is for Fields or Wilson to fall for Howie to be like, no, I got it. I'm doing the big move that's going to put me on the front page of SportsCenter of taking Justin Fields. And now we're a quarterback factory. And now when Jalen Hurts doesn't play well for the first 5 or 6 games, Justin Fields chants come out. Now week 10, here comes Justin Fields. And we go through this Eagles saga again. I would love to root for y'all. As the guy holding the Lombardi trophy, I just want to give fair wishes to everybody. So I would love to root for y'all. But I got to look at what history is telling me, what the last few seasons are telling me. And I think Howie does something funny with that number 6 pick. I'm just anticipating it. So I'm going Jalen Hurts plays under the amount of games Carson Wentz does. Because they are cemented, it seems like, for Carson Wentz to be the starter. That's not cemented here in Philadelphia for Jalen Hurts to be the starter. Not yet. So right now, my bet, if I had to turn a ticket around, I'm gonna go ahead and put 20 on that under and see if it hits. I'm gonna just do that.
Ooh.
For my entertainment too, because that would be good entertainment for myself.
Oh, we got an under, we got an even. Max, are you breaking the tie here? Or are you going with over?
I'm gonna say Jalen Hurts plays more games than Carson Wentz. I'm just gonna block out all the bad thoughts that JJ's theoretical just gave me. I'm gonna just try to,
Dalvin Cook.
I'm just gonna shut my eyes as hard as I can and act like none of that ever happened. And I'm gonna say the Eagles have no reason to play any other quarterback besides Jalen Hurts this year. So we're gonna see him in any game he's active and healthy. Which, given his track record, better chance to play all 16 games than Carson Wentz. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, that's what I was going to say, too. I was going to say Hurts plays over just because there's a reason. The Colts put that little 70%, 75% thing into that trade. And, hey, I want to see a world where we're both right, where, like, Wentz plays 80% of snaps and Hurts still gets the over. Now, the next one, we're talking about just Wentz this time. So, Carson Wentz will throw over or under 3,500 yards next season. And I'm going to give you some context to help you make the decision. So, he's averaging... in his whole career, he's averaging 3,362 yards per season. And if you want some context for Colts passers, last year Phillip Rivers threw 4,169 yards. That's 10th in the NFL. So I'll ask it again. JJ, I'll come to you first with this one. Is Carson going to throw over or under 3,500 yards? 3,500.
I feel like if Carson hits under that 3,500 mark, something went wrong in the Colts season that they really didn't want to happen. I mean, in today's NFL, you roll out of bed throwing over 3,500 yards, and a good passing quarterback like throws for 4,000. I mean, Phillip Rivers threw. I mean, I know Phillip Rivers in his career throws for 4,000 yards, on a Tuesday in July. That's just what he does in his career. But in today's NFL, when it's so pass happy, you'd have to think if a team believes in their quarterback's ability to throw the ball, if they're not completely dependent on the run game, and he plays all 16, it's very hard to throw under 3,500 yards. You either got hurt, didn't play, or Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor are carrying the ball 35 to 40 times a game, which just doesn't happen in today's NFL. I don't think this necessarily has a indication on how well Carson Wentz does, but I'm going to hit that over where he throws over 3,500 yards just for the sake of, I'm not anticipating crazy injury or him getting benched before week 10 or 11 for that to happen.
ERock, are you sharing that sentiment, or do you think it's going to be a dud of a season?
Yeah, I think not only is it an over, it's an easy over. I think JJ put it well. You almost wake up in the morning this day and age in the NFL and throw for 3,500 yards. I dismissed it as an easy over, but all of a sudden I'm thinking about the under, and the only thing I can think about at the under is imagine how disastrous that would be for the Indianapolis Colts if they traded for Carson Wentz and gave all that value up. And it's not because of injury, and it's not because he's reunited with Frank Reich. He's just mentally not there, and he's burnt out.
He's got the
yips. He's a
now.
head case, and he's got yipitis. You know what I mean? Which is chronic now. You can't get rid of it, and it gets progressively worse. Like, how disastrous would that be for the Indianapolis Colts if Carson Wentz didn't throw for 3,500 yards? That's terrifying.
It's almost ERock. I'm actually going to quote everyone here. Your arch nemesis and Jerry Jones. I forget which player he paid for, but they were asking, like, is it time to bench him? Is it time to move on from him? And it was the most businessman-like answer I've ever heard. I paid for the asset. I'm going to use it. Like, we gave all this up for him. I'm not going to not get a year's worth of what we paid for. Whether he's good or bad, I gave up all of this for him. I'm going to at least see it out for the year. That in itself, I think, spells 3,500 yards.
Now, Max, 3,500, are you hitting the over? And if so, give me a number that you would think is a little better for the over-under.
So for 3,500, I'm going to go over. I'll give you somewhere in the low 3,800s. But if we were going 4,000, I'm going hard under, because at this point, I don't see how, after what I saw for 12, however many games it was last year, I don't see a guy that's going to be willing to sit in the pocket and make every single throw, go through every single read every single time he's supposed to. I just don't see how Wentz doesn't accumulate somewhere between 300 to 450 rushing yards throughout the season, just given his newfound propensity to put his head down and run. That was maybe the most positive facet of his game last year, was when he wasn't trying to make plays happen for too long and taking sacks. He was willing and able to be a runner. And about halfway through his playing time last year, I noticed a shift in terms of him being almost like a fresh out of college quarterback, where if you don't see what you like right away, just take it and run, because I don't want to armchair psychologist this too hard. But I think it's kind of fair to say that, after all those weeks and weeks of bad performances and throwing picks and throwing bad passes starts to add up in your head. And what's easier than throwing a pass? It's not throwing the ball at all and keeping it to yourself and running. So I think that 4,000 or 3,500 passing yards is probably a gimme, right? If I like, at this point, if I see a quarterback plays all 16 games and they don't hit, at least 3,500 yards, you just can't be qualified as a good quarterback if you play all 16 games and can't hit 3,500 yards in the modern NFL. So I'm going to say that 3,500 yards is definitely feasible. 4,000 passing yards, no. 4,000 total yards, yes.
So we got overs across the board for 3,500 yards, even though that's something Wentz has done twice in his 5 seasons in the NFL. Now, the final over-under. The big bad man in the front office. Howard Roseman will be general manager for over or under the next 2 seasons.
Woo! I think this is the benchmark of 2 seasons is probably the best over-under that you have here, because look at Max down there going through it.
I know.
Absolutely. Max, I just saw Max imagine 2 more years of Howie Roseman. He started biting his lip. That's the answer
Honestly,
that you need right there.
I'm just so scared because you brought up how bad Howie wants to make the top of the segment of Sports Center. He's going to do that by taking like Mac Wilson at 6 or taking Trey Lance at 32 or something. That's how it's going to happen, and that's what scares me. That's really what scares me here.
JJ,
And
go ahead. Keep going, Max.
No, you're good. I don't want. I think it's just I don't want to think about that. I would like to withdraw from this question, but given my obligation to the people, I'm not going to.
Here's why I'm on both sides of it.
Coinflip says over 2 seasons.
Because on one hand, you look at the track record of everything Howie has like exploded, everything that he's torn down, and you're looking behind him as he's walking up to, and you're like, I can't let him go any further, right? Because he's just going to continue to mess up and destroy. But in the same hand, you're like, how has he been able? Like, there's a reason he's still walking up to me at this point. Like, how has he gotten here? How has he not been fired or derailed to this point after all the decisions that he's made? So it's hard, but I'm gonna have to go under because if he's continuing on this trend, I can't see how he lasts 2 more years in the front office because it's like you had 3 things wrong with last season: Carson, Doug, and Howie. You got rid of Carson or you got rid of Doug. Everyone was like, it didn't make us feel better. You know, it didn't take the bad taste out of our mouth. You trade Carson, everyone's like, nah, it still didn't make us feel better. We're still a bad apple here. And Howie's the last piece. So if you're still not feeling better after a certain amount of games or a full season, it's how does Howie continue to keep his job? But I got to let ERock get it off his chest because he's absolutely just going through the gauntlet in his mind.
Yeah, ERock, you seem to be struggling a little bit. What is it, over on?
Yeah, I'm not struggling with my answer. I'm struggling with how to properly convey my answer. Okay. I'm going to take the over. And the reason I'm going to take the over is because the owner already admitted that they were in a transition period, right? In his first bumbling, stumbling, rumbling, 45-minute long, just blah, 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 blah press conference, he admitted that they were in a transition period. When I hear the word transition period, my mind tends to already go to at a minimum 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. Any team in the NFL, if they're in a genuine, self-admitted transition period, it's a 2-year process. Once upon a time, not too long ago, the Eagles were also in a transition period where they were moving on from Chip Kelly, brought in Doug Peterson, and got themselves a quarterback, right? That in and of itself was a transition period. 2 years, they found the ultimate success. That Super Bowl was a blessing and a curse to the Philadelphia Eagles. A blessing because we finally got there, and I saw one before I was dead. Okay, it was a curse because when you find success that early on in the process, you don't actually get to complete the effing process. You know what I mean? You're expecting there's a 3-year plan, there's a 5-year plan, and you hit that sumbitch in year 2. Oh shit. So now every decision that you're making is in scramble mode, like, we just won a Super Bowl. Is the window open? I don't know. I wasn't expecting to be here this quick. Were you? No. So is the window open? Okay, I guess it's open. Well, we better run it back next year. What the hell do we do? We were still in building mode, and we won the Super Bowl. All right, shit. Oh, go. Give JP all this money. Give Alshon all this money. And so a lot of the decisions, the poor decisions, in hindsight, were made in an effort to run it back. Run back this ghost thing that never should have been there to begin with. So you can make an argument that if we're going into another transition again, by the way, this isn't an apology for Howie Roseman's piss poor drafting. Okay, we all recognize the problems with Howie Roseman, but if we're going to go into another transition period, you have to assume they're going to process this thing and at least give Brett Brown and the GM, quick, Brett Brown and Elton Brand, 2 years to kind of write, or no, Sam Hinkie, to kind of, you're going to give them time to see it through. You can't trust the process. You can't go through a transition period and after year 1 go, this isn't really working out. You haven't envisioned the end result. You haven't seen the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think for better or for worse, he's going to be here for the next couple years, and honestly, Eagles fans shouldn't be. I've been saying this on my videos. Eagles fans shouldn't be that upset about it. I know that sounds funny to say out loud, but they shouldn't be that upset about it because they can't. Howie Roseman can't weasel his way out of this one anymore. He can't blame the quarterback. You can't blame the head coach. You can't blame anybody. You can't blame the owner. You can't.
You would think.
No, I know. If Howie Roseman doesn't right this ship in 2 to 3 years, he's got nobody to blame but himself. And through his own design, as in essence, wrote himself his own suicide note for this organization. So he either gets it right or he gets gone.
But ERock, how is that different from looking at his piss poor drafting up until this point and saying, like, there's no pieces around Carson. There's no
JJ, goddammit, do not put me in a position where I'm defending Howie Roseman. Don't you do that to me. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm just trying to reason over here.
I'm not trying, and I know this is for you to ease your heart because you're an Eagles fan. You got to be able to swallow it. I get it. Look, I was in the dark for 18 years before this Super Bowl, man. I get it. I get being in dark times. I'm trying to be here with you. I'm trying, but I'm saying, how does Howie not be able to weasel his way out of it in the future if he was able to weasel his way out of it now? He put Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz on the chopping block to disguise the fact that he's been so bad in the draft leading up to this point.
But you can't in turn. You got no more bodies to put on the chopping block. Like Howie Roseman has blamed Chip out. Howie Roseman has outlived Andy Reid. And to get past Andy Reid, he brought in the hottest head coaching hire in the college ranks. That was Chip Kelly. And Chip Kelly went, this dude's not a football dude. I need the power. Okay, so Jeffrey Lurie gives him the power. He goes into a closet. And then reemerges, and then he wins the Super Bowl. Again, a blessing and a curse for this organization. Nobody's going to sit here. Nobody with a right mind is going to sit here and make excuses for Howie Roseman's drafting. I'm not going to do it. Nobody with the right mind is going to do it.
And I guess you'd be right to not do it again. But he went and got Chip Kelly. 3 years later, Chip Kelly gets fired. You went and got Doug Peterson. 3 years later, Doug Peterson gets fired. You go and get a new coach. Who's to say 3 years from now if it doesn't work out?
In the end, Littlefinger got what's coming to him. He lied and connived and cheated his way for so long, and sooner or later it all caught up with him. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over because I genuinely want to see my team succeed. And if he's over, that should mean that the team's on the right track and that the draft mistakes have been corrected. So I want to take the over. But I do think he's given, at minimum, reasonably, 2 years. Just like Nick Sirianni should be given 2 years to see it through.
I agree.
Well, that's our last over-under question. I'm with you, ERock. I'm also taking the over on this one. I'm not as optimistic, however. I kind of feel he's been this bad and he's still here. So what's to say? I don't know. He might have some blackmail on Jeffrey Lurie, but that is it for at least most of the sports
really
here.
quick.
Oh, Max, we got a hand raised. Go ahead, Max.
I know I have delay. I just think that the only way that it's under 3 years total is if he drafts a QB this year, because if the fan this year and they draft a QB next year, he's getting 2 years with that quarterback. And at that point, if shit is still hitting the fan, then we're going through another blow up. But hopefully, like ERock said, I want to see my team do well. I'm going to hope that shit is not still hitting the fan 3 years from now.
Yeah, I share that sentiment big time. Now, that's going to wrap up our show for today. But before we go, we have tap outs. Now, ERock, I know you've been with us before. I'm sure you're familiar with it. You want to plug yourself? You got anything to tap us out today?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, Eric_Emmanuel. You can follow me on Instagram, where a lot of the fun happens, at the Mighty ERock. And I just, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been about a couple years since I've last been on, and last time it was under much different circumstances, and I was sitting across from Joe Sanliquito, and I wanted to, I got a picture of me. Just, you can tell I'm ready to jump across the table and deck the guy.
Crazy how you're talking about the same person, though.
Yeah. And here we are, and I kind of owe the guy a little bit of an apology because perhaps he was right, perhaps we were a little. But who I'm not going to, who owes me an apology is because after this show, I need to go take a shower because JJ over here is making me defend Howie Roseman, making me sound like a Howie Roseman defender, and I feel disgusting about it. I feel dirty about it. God damn it, JJ, you had to do that? Jesus. I got to go take a shower and watch this filth.
Anything, I don't want to sound audacious. You should be thanking me because I don't think you realize that your words were coming off as Howie Roseman defending. So I made you see the light of your words. You're like, hold on, man.
All right.
Let me change
All right,
the nature.
if that's the case, I appreciate the assist. I appreciate the assist.
ERock, appreciate you coming on the show. Hopefully next time we won't be doing this from a computer. But hey, that's how things go. JJ, Max, either you guys want to tap us out?
I got a nice light tap out. So I'm gonna move away from the NFL, go to the NBA, go to the hardwood. I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard the newest buzz in the NBA sphere. It's called NBA Top Shot. So what it is buying and selling NBA moments. Everything is right now. It's Max. I'm glad you have it open right now because I'm about to jump on the wave. It's everything is turning. Literally everything is turning digital nowadays, and I think this NBA Top Shot thing is genius. What it does for people who are unaware of the platform is you can buy and sell like highlights and moments of your favorite player. And it works in partnership with the NBA and the NBA Players Association, where you're getting highlights and reels that you could only find, like our NBA only content that are copyrighted from the NBA. So the angles, the type of plays, the pictures that you only see from the NBA social media, you can now obtain for yourself and even more sell. And I'm not talking selling them for $5 and $10. I'm talking hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. You are literally selling a highlight for like thousands. Like if you go onto the marketplace right now, the top ones, a LeBron James dunk, a baseline LeBron James dunk against the Clippers can be sold for like $5,000. I shit you not. A Zion Williamson putback
you're
highlight
way off on that 1,000
for 8,000. It is crazy the money you can make. So tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I'm jumping on this wave right now because it's the more people get hip to this app, get hip to this website, the more the prices are going to go up because the demand is going to go up. So I'm putting everybody on game right now. I just made an account like 2 hours ago. I'm gonna spend my night perusing, and I'm gonna try to flip some highlights, man. I'm gonna try to get some low like underlying players now who might bloom by the end of the season. And make yourself a couple hundred, flip a highlight or two.
I'm not even going to look at that because I'm telling you right now, I got Allen Iverson taste with Markelle Fultz money. I can't afford highlights. I can't afford highlights.
It's funny. The reason why I'm so hype about it is because I'm a guy who, I've tried to understand the stock market so much. And every time someone tries to explain it to me, it literally sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. There's a wah, 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 wah. So this is it looks like the stock market to me. These are assets that I can buy low and sell high. I'm like, I get it now. I understand. If someone can explain it to me. What is Dogecoin? It's a Zion Williamson, baseline dunk against the Clippers in mid-February. I get that. So you can flip that for, you know what I mean? I understand this. So it's like my first introduction to buying something and flipping it digitally. So I'm like, I might be able to step myself, towards the stock market now. Wall Street, watch out.
I gotta check that out. That sounds a bit tough.
It's cool, man.
Anyways, Max Delphi, any tap out today?
Yeah, I do actually. So I was debating between NBA Top Shots or my actual tap out. JJ, really quick, I tell you, they have a live pack queue right now on the website. Sign in. I just signed in.
Did they just drop a pack?
My account through connecting with Google, and I'm having issues signing in. There's a live queue for one, literally right now. So go on the website. It's like $9 a piece. I'm probably not going to be able to get one.
I'm going to be checking out for the last 5 minutes.
Today, we witnessed the official announcement of the ending of one of the greatest musical acts of our lifetime. Daft Punk has officially hung it up publicly. They're calling it a career, at least temporary. With entertainers these days. But it is truly insane to someone who's a big EDM person by any means. It is not lost on me, someone who appreciates all forms of music, what Daft did for what is maybe the largest genre of music in the world currently. And there's no doubt that all of us here have raged out at some point to a Daft Punk song. So I'm just going to leave you with this. One of my favorite jokes on the internet has ever created. Make sure you check Lucky by Daft Punk this weekend. Could be song of the summer.
I love it. And you're right. I'm not a Daft Punk fan. I'm not a huge guy, but we've all raged out to a Daft Punk song. And that song sounds pretty good. I'll have to check that out this weekend. All right, no tap out from me this week other than, hey, you can get us on our podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud.
There it is.
Anywhere you get your podcast, trust the process live. That's a wrap for this week's edition. Brought to you by My New Philly, where everything's always new. Now, something's always new, and everything's always Philly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for watching.
Everything's always Philly.
ERock, we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Go Birds.
Oh, yeah, this was fun.